Well, in that case, good morning, everyone. My name is Carlos Mariaca, and for those who don't know me, I am one of the board members of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida, where I've had the pleasure to serve in many different capacities, including president in 2013. But on behalf of our entire board and our advisory council, I'd like to welcome you to this celebration of life for our dear and loved founder, Thomas J. Skola. It's a bit of a bitter honor to have been asked to serve as the, let's say, moderator, for the lack of a better word, for this event. It's certainly a great honor for me because Tom is not just our founder. To me, he's also a mentor and a cherished friend. But at the same time, you know, it is a little bitter because, just like all of you, I miss him dearly. Having said that, the purpose of today's event is to celebrate his life by sharing our stories and our memories. Just so that you know what our program will be like, I'm going to start shortly with a small presentation that Mary Arnaud, our executive director, and Larissa Nunez, our business development manager, have put together. Mary's going to help me with some of the pictures and try to put them into context for you. We'll then have several of his family members and friends share their thoughts with us. After that, we will have a beautiful presentation by Brazilian Voices, who will sing us a song in Tom's memory. And at the end, for those who didn't get a chance to speak, would like to say a few words, please use the chat function in Zoom to let us know so that we can activate your microphone and your camera if you wish. We will do our best to accommodate everyone to the best of our capabilities. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen with you. And there and there. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So a couple of these, I'm just going to read the text, but just to, you know, so some of you get to learn a little more about Tom and what he's done through our organization. You know, Tom's association with the BACCF stretches back 40 years. You know, our organization is completing 40 years this year. And it was his early recognition of the rapid growth and potential of Brazilian commerce in South Florida, dating back to the 1970s, that led him to establish the BACCF in 1981. Prior to his founding of the Chamber, Tom led an international business and legal advisory firm focused on Latin America and Brazil in particular. While residing in Brazil from 1977 through 1981, his activity centered on international business and banking transactions. In the Chamber's earliest days, Tom was its first president and the face of our organization. His law office served as the BACCF's first office and corporate address. He subsequently served as treasurer and was an active board member, fully engaged in the Chamber's expansion and activities. Last year, in recognition of his service to the Chamber, Tom was presented with a lifetime honorary membership. Tom leaves a towering legacy for the BACCF. He will be remembered not just as the Chamber's founder, but as a visionary and driving force of the organization's mission over 4 decades. The BACCF is profoundly grateful of Mr. Skola's dedication and guidance, which has made our organization one of the largest of its kind in the Southeastern United States. In collaboration with Tom's immediate family, the BACCF is establishing the Thomas J. Skola Fund to be overseen by the board of directors of the Chamber and will focus on educational and community projects. And I'd really like to take the time to thank all of you. A lot of you have already made donations to the fund, and we very much appreciate it. And for those that wish to contribute, there is a page on our website, on the Chamber's website, dedicated to Tom, which has a lot of information about him. It has links to be able to donate to the fund. The BACCF annual Feijoada was one of his favorite events. It certainly is one of mine as well. And I think a lot of our members of the Chamber agree with that. We have a yearly gala dinner to celebrate Brazil's Independence Day. And Tom never missed his opportunity to wear and show us his Cruzeiro do Sul pin. For those who don't know, the Cruzeiro do Sul pin is basically it's the highest honor that a non-Brazilian national can receive from the Brazilian government, Brazilian president. And it certainly is a great honor that he has received it. And we enjoyed it very much when he wore it to our events. Here's a few more pictures. Mary, I don't know if you want to put some of these into context. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what were the years for each one of these events, since we had so many of them. There are several articles also talking about Tom. This presentation will be available also on the Brazilian Chamber's website. And when you get to these slides, if you click on any of these, it will take you to where these articles are listed. They're all in that page that I mentioned, In Memory of Tom, on our website. Like I said, it has the information of the fund. It has these articles. It has information about him. It also has a link to a lovely video that the head of the Miami consulate, our ambassador, filmed together with Alexandre Piquet, who's our current president, in memory of our beloved Tom. So here's another example of one of the most recent articles that were published in early 2020. And here we have a few more of our BACCF memories. Again, Tom has been with the Chamber since its beginning for 40 years. So there's certainly a lot of pictures dating back over decades of Tom participating in many of our different events. Man, I look young in that picture. As so a lot of the people who are connected today. And last but certainly not least, here are a few of the family and friends memories that you have shared with us, pictures that you have sent to us of Tom with you over the years as well.
Was he there?
Who's that? Oh, that's a young picture. Well, that was the short presentation that I wanted to share with you. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Larissa, for putting that together for us. Before I introduce our first speaker, I'd like to quickly share with you one of my fondest memories of Tom. I met Tom about 20 years ago when I opened my first little one-man business that provided technology consulting services for small offices. Tom was having some problems with his technology and his computers. Mary suggested that I go and visit him and take a look at it. I looked at it, I identified the problems, and I fixed them, and I explained it to him what were the problems and how they happened and how to avoid it. And after that, for some reason, Tom didn't want anybody else touching his technology. He trusted me, he liked what I did, and he said, I don't want anybody else touching my computers. Eventually, I moved on to other professional endeavors, but for the next 2 decades, if Tom had a problem with his technology, he called me, and I would gladly either connect to his computer remotely, go to his office. After he retired and closed his office, I'd go to his house. And every time I'd identify the problem, I'd fix it and explain it to him what had happened and what we could do to avoid having the same issue in the future. And every time I did that, he would turn to me and he would say, Carlos, that's why you're my technology guru. Me, I'm just a poet. And I will always cherish that because every single time he would tell me the same thing. Carlos, I'm just a poet. But enough of me talking. I'd like to introduce now our first speaker, Edie, Tom's granddaughter, who will be followed by her father, Josh, together, which is Tom's son, and together with his wife, Liz. Edie, you may go ahead.
Hi.
My name's Edie.
Louder.
My name's Edie, and this is the story how Lola saved me from Shrek.
Louder.
It was the day on Halloween night, and my mommy was picking me up from Eugene. And when I got home, Shrek was at the house, and Bobo was at the house, and I was scared at Shrek, so Bobo yelled at Shrek and said, "Don't come back if you're going to scare Edie," and pushed him over the railing. And he left. And bye.
Okay, say bye to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Smile one more time. All right. Sorry, guys, she's shy in front of everybody. Edie wanted to go first because she said, "I don't like to see my daddy cry," but I've held it together all this way, so I think I'm gonna get through that. Before I begin, I just want to thank Mary and the team at the Chamber, Carlos, everybody, for facilitating this virtual celebration. But this is just the trailer to what I believe will be a blockbuster celebration when it's safe for all of us to gather again. A celebration where the cachaça will be flowing, the vino will be flowing, the chorizo will be hot, and we'll all be able to tell stories about Dad. So I guess after that, Carlos, I just want to personally thank you for being my dad's technology guru, because if it wasn't you, it was going to be me or Zach. So I think I can speak for Zach when I say thank you for being that guru. I wanted Edie to start because she talks about her experience in Halloween and how Bobo protected her from Shrek. And that leads me to a memory of my dad and how he has always been the biggest, strongest man in the world, self-proclaimed, of course. And he said that when we get together and we celebrate, he wants us to tell stories that are exaggerated and some that are factual. So I will do a little bit of both for all of you here today. So Dad was the self-proclaimed biggest, strongest man in the world. And Zach and I had the privilege throughout our childhood and even adulthood in proving that theory out. It didn't matter where we were, whether it was at the Finger Lakes, whether it was on a camping trip. As we got older, Zach and I would strategize of how we could pin Dad. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that's easy. He was an old man. Well, no. In his prime, he was quite the wrestler. And when Zach and I, whether we went at him solo by surprise or went at him as a team, he would always get us in 5 seconds, and we'd be saying uncle, and we'd be laughing our heads off because he'd be tickling us at the same time that he had his leg wrapped around our neck. So he was always the biggest, strongest man in the world, even at his house, at the pool. And for those of you that know my dad very well, you know that he can't swim. We would knock him in the pool, and he would still pin us, and we would say uncle. So that's my fondest memory, my greatest story for the purpose of this celebration today. I'm so happy to see everybody's face, considering the circumstances, and I look forward to hearing everybody's stories. And now I will pass it to Liz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz. I'm Josh's wife. I haven't known Tom quite as long as some of you, but since Josh and I have been dating a long time, even before we got married, I have known him quite some time. And I wanted to share a story about when Josh and I were living here in Atlanta before we got married. We were just dating, and I was considering going to law school. And Tom came to visit, and we went out to dinner. And I told him I was very excited. You know, he was the only lawyer in the family. And he spent the entire dinner telling me about how law school was so difficult, and the students were cutthroat, and it was just really difficult. And there are a lot of jerks in the legal profession. I'm sure if there are any on this call, he was excluding you. And so I left the dinner and, went back with Josh, and I said, why did he try to talk me out of that? Like, did he just think that I can't go to law school, can't handle it? And Josh said, no, that's my dad. He was just looking out for you. He wanted you to be prepared. I was a naive, 23-year-old, like, I'm going to go to law school. I obviously did go to law school, and he was one of my biggest supporters. And I want to share, he actually did the hooding at my graduation. I don't know if this picture is coming up or not, but it might not be. Okay, there it is. He actually did the hooding ceremony at my law school graduation. And one thing I've learned, like, after knowing Tom even longer and, becoming a lawyer myself, is that one thing that he did for people as a lawyer is, he advocated for his clients, and he put his clients' interests before, his client's interest is the most important thing. And in doing that, a lot of times you have to warn your clients about any potential problems or dangers with the course that they're considering. And that's what he was doing for me. He was looking out for me. And that's one of the ways that Tom showed his love for everyone, not just his clients, his family, his friends. He looked out for you. He would send you clippings in the mail. He would, of things that he read on an article and clipped it out and sent it to you that he thought you'd be interested in. He gave you advice. He liked to banter with you. And that's one thing that I think made him a really good lawyer, is how much he cared about people, but it also made him an incredible friend and father and grandfather. And we love him very much, and we dearly miss him.
Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you so much, Edie, Josh, and Liz. That was beautiful. Now, I'd like to introduce Mr. Gary Spolek, who's from Embraer, one of the founding companies of the Brazilian Chamber. And Gary is also a longtime friend of Tom's. Gary, please.
Thanks, Carlos. And thank you so much for the honor and privilege of being here for this very important ceremony and event. But as far as Tom is concerned, let me take you back to the early 1980s. So Embraer had first arrived in the United States as this little kind of a David, from Brazil, who was going to try to enter the Goliath, which was the U.S. Airline industry. And the person that was going to lead this big effort was a gentleman by the name of Newton Berwig. And he was a Brazilian born in Rio Grande do Sul. And incredibly, at the age of 18, he decided to leave Brazil to join the U.S. Air Force, and he became a B-52 bomber captain at the Strategic Air Command. And of course, he was recruited to lead Embraer in his retirement from the U.S. Air Force by Osiris Silva, who was the founder of Embraer, right, to bring the Bandeirante to the United States. And so Newton decided to establish the Embraer's U.S. roots, of all places, in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, anywhere in the U.S. And it wasn't long before he sought out members of the small community of Brazilians at that time living in South Florida. But during this process, he met Tom Skola, who was actively involved at that time in supporting commerce between the U.S. and Latin America. Their relationship was firmly established as friends immediately, from what Newton and both Tom told me. Both shared a passion for bringing together and growing the Brazilian business community in Florida. And as Newton told me, Tom invited him to take the bold step to form in the early 80s the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida, which is the powerhouse that it is today. So I remember I met Tom on one of his many visits to Embraer in Fort Lauderdale, where he would always come to discuss plans with Newton on how to take advantage, of this growing force of Brazilians in the community that would soon go on to shape the personality of South Florida, and how Embraer's business in the U.S. should be carried out as a Brazilian company. And he and Newton introduced me to many other pioneering Brazilians in South Florida, including the gentleman that's here today, Bruno Berghini. Tom told me on many occasions, and this is the one thing that I remember from him and what I keep from him even today, how important it was for companies like Embraer and for us as leaders to act as ambassadors for Brazil, and all that the future could represent. It made a really big impression on me. And I made sure during my time as president of Embraer in the US that all of our US team embraced this role and the importance that Tom placed on it and its value. He was always present at every significant milestone of Embraer's development as a US business. The humble roots in Dania, then the Fort Lauderdale site, and then the growth in other areas of Florida locations, including Central Florida. But I will tell you that we consider Tom as an Embraer Bandeirante, a pioneer, a mentor to us Americans who were brought into the fold of the Brazilian community. And we will always remember him and be thankful to him for that relationship with Newton that helped David beat Goliath.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Gary. We will now have, Tom's twin brother, Tim Skola.
Thank you much, Carlos. And thank all of you who are here today with us to celebrate my brother's life. Throughout his life, he expressed a very strong love for Brazil. And it was part of our conversations throughout our entire life together. Of what he was doing, he was living there, of course, for 4 years. He worked there quite a bit, but he really did love Brazil. And he found a unique way to share that love of Brazil with some of his closest friends. He organized a 2-week trip to Rio in 1974 for 12 people, 10 friends who 5 couples, 10 friends, who flew down to Rio to join him for Carnival and spend 2 weeks in the process so that we were able to absorb everything. Tom and Kathy were phenomenal hosts for us down there. They were not only just a host, but they were our guides, our navigators, and very importantly, they were our interpreters so that we could place orders for food and be understood as we were on the street every day. We had a great time, a fabulous time in the 2 weeks. We got to know the people and the culture very closely. We spent lots of time on the beach, both Ipanema and Copacabana. It was phenomenal weather, just phenomenal people on the beach. It was like a different world in itself. We went to many restaurants and sampled the food. It was just phenomenal. We even the excitement in the air for Carnival, where the world came to Rio. We were part of that tremendous electricity in the air and all of the fantastic things that were going on. In that way, Tom shaped a memory for us. Our group, we call ourselves the Carnival Kiddies, and I see faces there today that were members of that group. But he gave us memories that we have been able to carry out through our entire life. Recall those crazy 2 weeks we had and all the things that happened, some of which we'll never express openly to other people, but many laughs, many adventures, and one heck of a memory. So Tom, where you're at, thank you very much for those memories. You'll live on in our minds as part of being on the beach in Rio at 1974 Carnival time.
Drinking lemonade.
Drinking limonada. Drinking limonada on the beach.
Yeah, I think there was something mixed in that limonada. But thank you so much for sharing that with us, Tim. Up next, we have John Duplay, a high school friend of Tom's. Mary, do we have John connected?
Let me check if he's in the attendees. No.
If not, did you find him?
No.
Okay, let's go on to Pat Roth then, who was the first executive director of the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce of Florida.
That must be me. I met Tom back in the early 1990s, and my husband and I had just moved here from Brazil after living 7 years in Sao Paulo. So I saw a notice in the Business Monday calendar section of the Herald for a luncheon organized by the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. So I immediately signed up to attend. And when I got to the event, the group was relatively small, maybe 10 or 15 people. And of course, Tom was there. And Tom made a point to make me feel welcome. He invited me to sit at his table, which in hindsight must have been the head table. And I remember that Nelida Pignon, the famous Brazilian author, was the speaker. But Tom was like that. He was open and generous and gracious and made you feel welcome. And because the group was fairly small, and I thought there must be more people in Miami that were interested in the chamber and its events, I asked Tom if I could work for the chamber and help them grow the membership, and he agreed. So at that time, the chamber had no staff, just Tom, and no office, just Tom's secretary, Gisela, who would help out as needed. So that was how I became part of the chamber and how I met Tom, and really how I had the great pleasure and honor to work with him, especially during the years I was with the chamber, and then of course remained friends afterwards and see him at all the chamber events. So I think the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida today, some 30 years later from when I started, really continues to reflect Tom's imprint and his values. He was a person of tremendous integrity. He was always very ethical and transparent in all of his dealings. He didn't have a hidden agenda, but he was instead welcoming and open, and especially always ready to laugh and see the humor in things, which made him really such a joy to be around. So I feel very fortunate and very blessed to have known Tom, and like all of you, I'm going to miss him tremendously.
Thank you so much, Pat. Up next, we have Bruno Burghini, who is one of the founding members of the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce. Bruno, can you hear us? I can see you on the camera, but we can't hear you. Mary, if you want to call Bruno, see if you can help him. Maybe we can we'll move on to the next speaker.
Okay, let me
and see if you
unmute
can call
him right
him.
now. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. So while we figure out the technology on that end, not so much of a technology guru anymore, am I? We'll move on to Judy Kovac, Tom's sister, and I apologize if I mispronounce anybody's names. Judy, you just need to press the unmute button, probably on the bottom left corner.
It's my fault because
There you go. You found it. You found it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Do you have my picture? I'm on the lower right-hand side.
That's okay. We can see you and we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Tom was always a big reader. I told him novels that I read, and he told me books that he would read. And we compared bestsellers and had a lot of fun comparing the stories and authors. And Tom helped John and I with our estate and probate planning. And John and I like to travel. And Tom would always give us information on how people live and sightseeing places we should see. One trip we remember in Florida, and Tom wanted to show us the Everglades at night. We saw the alligators at night, and John was the only one badly bitten up by mosquitoes. He would also tell us his favorite spots to see in New York, like Central Park. He told us there were jugglers and entertainers performing on squares and in Central Park and Florida Keys. He talked about New York subways. He told us where to catch the subways and what stop to get off of to see the sights we wanted to see. He talked about many Broadway plays and New York City Hall. We even went to see the 9/11 disaster in January after it happened, and he told us where to stay. John and I traveled out of the country also to South America, Spain, and Portugal. Tom gave us a good advice on each of the countries because he had lived there, and he told us all about his favorite restaurants in each country. We were always amazed when we heard Tom speaking fluently in Portuguese and Spanish. John and I will really miss Tom. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Judy. Thank you for sharing that. Up next, we have one of Tom's high school friends as well, Charlie Hentel. Hentel? Did I pronounce that correctly? Hentel? Please, Charlie, go ahead.
Okay. You can hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going way back to when we were in college. And before that, when I used to go over to his house and see his mom and dad.
Remember,
Tom would introduce me as Yash, and then he learned the word dupa. And the one day I come in the house, and Tom says, "Here's dupa Yash," and oh my gosh, his mom went berserk. She says, "I didn't raise you to be swearing and use profanity in this house." So from that time on, we just called each other Yash, and we up to the last few days, it was always Yash, and that was part of our heritage with the Polish and Czech nationalities there. Then the other time, we were still pretty young, and Tom went to see his mom. He would always come over to our house on Christmas and stay here, and then visit his sister and his brother, and then go over to see his mom. He used to call it Hantel's Hotel. But anyway, the one night he came back, and it was a bad blizzard, and the roads were bad. And unfortunately, when he was coming around a curve to our house, which is a treacherous curve if you're not aware of it, he lost control of the car, and unfortunately it slid into this guy's mailbox, and he had a big rock in front of it, unfortunately. And this rental car that he got from Josh had a lot of damage. But here it was like 12 at night, there's nobody around, so he just backed the car up, and he was able to drive it back home to our house. Lo and behold, 3 o'clock in the morning, there's doorbell ringing. And I said, "What the heck?" I'm sound asleep. So I jump up, run downstairs, and here's 2 policemen. I said, "Yes, sir." And they said, "Do you own that car outside?" I said, "No, sir." He says, "Well, whose car is it?" I said, "I have a friend that came up from Miami, and he's staying here." He says, "Well, he left his license plate by this guy's mailbox." I says, "Oh my gosh." And then I found out, this later on, that what had happened. So what he had to do was go the next day downtown Brexville, and he had to pay a small fine. And the guy gave him a lecture about leaving the scene. And Tom said, "Well, I'm not going to try and explain this because it'd just make it worse." So he paid a small fee, and everything was settled. And I guess later on, Josh took care of the car. So anyway, we used to talk a couple times a week for years and years and years. And that's what I really miss, is our conversations. Really a true friend, and I miss him.
Thank
There's
you.
stories, but we don't have time.
We got to save it for when we do it in person.
That's exactly right.
Mary, did you figure out with Bruno Borghini? Did he get his microphone?
Bruno's back on. Bruno, is your microphone, his microphone's muted right now. I'm not sure if he's been able to.
Bruno, do you want to give this another try? We would need you to unmute your mic. I think he's still working on it a little bit. We'll move on to Gloria Johnson, who was the second executive director of the BACCF. And Mary, again, if you want to try to talk to Bruno, see if he can get his mic working.
Okay,
Gloria, please go ahead.
Good morning. First, I want to thank you all for including me in this very special event. Yes, I was the executive director after Pat Roth and before Mary. And when I think of Tom, the 5 words that just come to mind: respect, trustworthiness, responsibility, fairness, and caring. Having a strong work and professional ethic, integrity, honesty, and commitment, he always strived for what was right, and he was instrumental in shaping the principles and mores that still guide the Brazilian Chamber of Commerce of Florida today. When I moved to Miami in 1994 with my husband, I had no intention of going back to the job market. But I started volunteering at the Brazilian Chamber because I found out that Pat Roth, a friend from Brazil, was the executive director, and I thought that it was a good way to know people and get myself integrated in the community since I knew no one here. When Pat left for a job at FIBA, I was offered her position and was scared to death. It had been a very long time since I had held a full-time job, but I couldn't resist the temptation. So Tom then stepped in to give me confidence and made me believe that I could do it. He became my mentor, and I relied on his advice for most of my doubts. I bombarded him with questions, and he always answered right away and with great patience. But my most powerful and enduring memory of Tom is a very personal one. My husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and for a while things were manageable. But at one point I realized that I needed to quit my job very soon and be home full time. It was a very hard decision for me, since by now I loved the job and the people, but I was concerned about the continuity and well-being of the chamber. So naturally, I called Tom. We met for lunch, and I explained the situation and the need for an immediate replacement. But for once, Tom's first concern was not the chamber, and that makes me relate to the story that Liz told. He knew that I was not yet a citizen and asked me a lot of questions. He then, out of his own will and kindness, wrote the most complete, detailed power of attorney anyone could think of. And you know how detail-minded Tom was. This was really looked like a phone book. It covered and protected me for any foreseeable circumstance, things that I had never even thought about. And the meeting at his office for my husband to sign the power of attorney could have been a very painful one, since my husband, who was then still very conscious and aware, was signing away his life to me and being faced with the fact that sometime in the near future, he would be completely incapacitated. But Tom's grace, kindness, and gentleness succeeded in making us overcome the unpleasantness and the hardship of the moment. So at that moment, he thought more of me, he cared for than at the chamber. I will always be extremely grateful that I had the honor to work and befriend such a special man. And my thoughts go to his family, and especially for his sons, Josh and Zach, that he loved dearly and always spoke about with great pride.
Thank you so much for that, Gloria. Thank you for sharing that with us. I see now that Mr. John Duplay managed to connect. John, who I had mentioned you before, but you hadn't connected yet, but my understanding is you're more than 50 years friend with Tom, high school friend. Please, we would love to hear your thoughts and memories.
Well, I don't know that it's been set up until this point. So I put down some things that maybe you'll hear it again. Tom, everybody knows probably Tom was a twin, and one of his favorite stories was to tell that he kicked out Tim first just to make sure that it was safe to come on out when they were born. Their birthday is November 12th, a very sacred day that he said it was, and it was sacred in my house because it's also the birthday of my wife, Donna. So they were always in communications during that time. We graduated from John Adams High School in 1961. There was a student body of 3,000. There was 1,000 in our graduating class, and Tom was the president of our class. On my senior year, Tom taught me and Ron Perry coming out for the wrestling team, which he was a member of. He was the 112-pounder. Didn't realize that was a turning point in my life. In that spring of that year, Tom accompanied Ron and I down to Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. Ron worked out with the team and got himself a scholarship, and we both attended Miami and wrestled on the wrestling team for 4 years. When I graduated, I graduated in education. I got a teaching degree, and I also the job that I was applying for was for a head wrestling coaching job. If I didn't go out for the wrestling team, I wouldn't have had that experience. I wouldn't have had that job, and that's the job I stayed at for 33 years. So back then, little things make a difference. You never know when. In 1968, Tommy was doing some work in Mexico for some tour groups, and I had an opportunity to take a car from Dayton all the way across to San Francisco and ship it over to Hawaii. Tom turned in this ticket, and we drove across the country together. Little did I realize, we realized way back when that Tom maybe is very intelligent, but when he lost the gene when it came to directions. So we were on Route 80. It was his turn to drive, and I said to Tom, I said, okay, just go straight, and this will take us all the way to San Francisco. Well, I guess Route 80 went to the left, and the exit went straight, and we found ourselves a little off course there for a while. But we always had a lot of fun with Tom's inadequacy when it came to directions as a kid. In 2000, he organized a trip for us to go to the Olympic trials in Dallas. Ron Perry flew in from Seattle, Tom flew in from Miami, and Charlie Handel and I flew in from Cleveland. And wrestling kind of was our bonding thing beside our friendship. Later on, Tom joined us going to the NCAA wrestling tournaments that were all over the country. They would be in St. Louis, they would be in Philadelphia, sometimes in Cleveland. So in any case, wrestling was one of the things that really kept us in touch. When Don and I retired, we wintered in Florida. And so Tom and I would get together for all the football games. His favorite team, the University of Miami, of course. We would watch those games. But also we had the Super Bowl, and we had the college playoffs and things of that nature. January is my birthday. And so he would always insist on taking Donna, Zach, and I out for dinner. And so it's going to be a sad time because January we lost Tom and we lost Ron at the same time. And these are my high school friends. No matter where we were or wherever he lived, he always invited us in. We stayed with him in New York. He invited us to Brazil. Couldn't make that trip, and then we always stayed with him in Miami. But he will be missed very much. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All I can say is go Canes. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
My alma mater as well. So I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing those memories with us. Up next, we have Bill Yost. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And my understanding you were Tom's college roommate?
Yes. First, I want to thank you, Carlos, and Mary and the Chamber for organizing and putting this together, a tribute for one of my closest friends of now 60 years. Tom and Buzz and I, and Gretchen, Buzz's wife as well, entered University of Rochester in 1961. And Tom and Buzz and I were on the same floor, and we got to be friends, and we roomed together the next year. What I wanted to tell is a couple of stories about Tom. I think Tim will probably know these, but Tom achieved a lot, and we're talking about those things today. He was a good person, and he was a hard worker, but he wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He told me a couple of stories when we were on the wrestling team together. And he was, by the way, a very good collegiate wrestler. I was happy if I batted over 500. Tom rarely lost a match. But he told me that in high school, he was out for wrestling for several years and developed a lot of skills, but he never made the starting lineup until the last couple of months of his senior year. He said there was always somebody ahead of me who was a regional champ or a state champ, but that showed to me, I said, my gosh, this guy is really persistent. And he was. And and in academics, it was the same. And he told me another story. He said, I was really happy to get a scholarship and come to the University of Rochester. But you know how I studied for the SATs, the standard achievement test for college entrance. He studied the verbal part, which he felt he was weak in, by opening up the dictionary, starting with the A's and memorizing it. And I think he said by the time he took the exam, he was up to the M's. But that's Tom. You know, he set his mind on a goal and he developed the skills to accomplishment, and he went ahead and did it. Now, we all got together in the Finger Lakes and Tom and the boys would come up every year to the cottages that Buzz and Gretchen and Valerie and I, my wife Valerie and I had. Tom always brought 3 things with him in his luggage. He brought a tennis racket, he brought a chess board and his timer, and he brought a bottle of cachaça for the night that we'd have petitas. He and Buzz would start off each morning at both cottages, headed off to the tennis courts. And when they got back, it was never, well, gee, did you guys have a good time? It was who won, what happened throughout, what sets, and the scores. That was very important, but it was catching. We then carried that atmosphere to the evening when we all played euchre after dinner, and that the young people as well as the oldsters participated in that. And Tom was the leader of breaking us up into teams, and we competed the whole week. And it's something I'll never forget, and our trips will never be the same when we go up there. We will get together again, but it will be different. But there was one year, every 4 years, he would bring something else in his suitcase. And remember, the time we came up during the summer was late June, early July. And you know what has happened every 4 years, the World Cup. And he would, on the day Brazil was playing a game, he would pull out his yellow shirt and put it on and rile up the whole crowd. And no matter who we thought was a good team before, we were all rooting for Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that. Now, Buzz, if you could say a few words also, please.
I see one of those yellow shirts on Zach right now. I've seen that shirt so often over the years. But everyone has been speaking very nicely about Tom. And so, yeah, I agree. Tom was very bright, but nice, I'm not so sure about. It started our rooming together, 3 of us in one room. And all of a sudden, Tom would declare study break, whether Bill had a study board, me a desk. Next thing I know, my ear is being tapped, my head is being slapped. And Tom we would go at it. And Tom, I was not a wrestler, Bill and Tom, next thing I know, I would be down on the floor pulling at the mattress. and Tom would have me pinned, and Bill would have to break it up. And this continued, this competitiveness and trash talking continued throughout his life. Then it went on to playing chess. And so a classic example would be, we'd be playing chess usually on the beach. And unfortunately, Tom was a very good chess player, would usually win. And the next thing I know would be what we call the Skola strut. It would be like un gallo, a rooster, coming out on the dock, just strutting. Tom was not a gracious winner. And this again, and Billy's right about the World Cup, everything stopped. And Tom, I mean, we all fell in love with Brazil. We traveled down when Tom and Kathy were living there. And yeah, as Tim has said, you know, with our initially starting with that whole group of us that went down, but then visiting what we call the spa where Tom and Kathy lived, and all fell in love with feijoadas and all of Brazil, and learned to love the World Cup. And that was really, I think Tom loved, you know, he had a great sense of adventure, a great love of languages, a great love of travel, but he really loved Brazil and all the Brazilian traditions, and certainly the national team of Brazil. Going back to, I remember when Tom negotiated the contract for Pele to come with the Cosmos. Tom did all the work on that. So we just have, yeah, just great memories. We're going to miss Tom, but Tom was all about creating memories, and we have all of those. Thank you. Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Buzz.
Yeah.
And now we will have Tom's other son, Zach. Please. Zach, hold on just one second. I just noticed Bruno Burghini is connecting. He was having some trouble connecting. Bruno, can you hear us?
I can hear you, and I'm finally connected, because yeah, I had all kinds of headaches because I'm in my apartment in New York right now, and I have never used Zoom at this PC that I have over here. So can you guys hear me all right?
We can hear you. Please go ahead, Bruno.
I'm so glad, because I wouldn't miss this for the world. Talking about Thomas, for me, one of my heroes. This guy, we did some crazy things back for some 40 years ago, by the way, when we started this crazy journey of the Brazilian America. Hey, hello. So many years. This is Zach, I remember, and then there was Josh. But anyways, so many years ago, some 40 years ago, and he had this crazy idea at that time of opening a Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce, where there was only a handful of Brazilians in Florida. Some 40 years ago, like you went to the supermarket and you heard Portuguese, and this was a phenomenon. You talk to, look, so there's a Brazilian here. But anyways, so Thomas was this pioneer where he called us at Varig Airlines. I used to be general manager for Varig at that time. And I believed him, and we started out from scratch. And he pursued this like very few people would pursue this. He, in my opinion, sincerely, he was one of the most important figures that these two countries had for business, like especially Florida, because there was a Chamber of Commerce in New York, and a very prestigious Chamber of Commerce in New York. And Florida had to have one because of the importance of Florida. I don't know what is the situation now, but back then we were the #1 trading partner of Brazil, Florida and Brazil. So this hero guy, out of nothing, he started this, and he with such strength, with such heart. And we started visiting, like the general manager for Banco do Brasil. We needed these very powerful institutions to join us, and he was the one, the mentor for all of this. He was the one starting this. It's very. I think he has an importance. This man, he has an importance so huge, so great that people have trouble people don't understand sincerely the importance of Thomas Skola for the relationship, the business relationship of Brazil and Florida. Why not the United States? The United States, because we were everywhere back then as well. So it's my hero, and this guy. Some more tributes have to be made in his honor. So, in my opinion, so huge he is. So very few people ever had ever were. So that's Thomas Skola for me. I get emotional because we were great friends, and we started this some 40 years ago, and wonderful. I used to call him Thomas because everybody's called him Tom, but there was this. I said to him, "Listen, I don't like this Tom thing, so you're going to be Thomas for me." So Tom was Thomas. So I'm glad to see Josh, and I'm glad to see Zach over here. Because I saw you guys when you were just tiny little babies anyways. And he was so proud of these two, and he loved them so much. I remember getting hotels in Copacabana for you guys. He was either taking Josh or Zach with him, and he wanted for you guys to have the very best of the times. So guys, basically that's what it is. I think more things I have to do in his name because of his importance. To really understand, Carlos, the importance of this man.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for that, Bruno.
I'm so glad that I was able to participate. So glad.
Thanks. And now we will, last but not least, please, Zach, you mentioned that you would like to speak last, so please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Again, thanks to Mary and the Chamber and Carlos for moderating. Thanks to everyone here, really. I've had a hard time trying to figure out what to say. I have pages of notes here, things that I could write down, but not realistically talk about without breaking down and crying. I've known some of the people here my whole life, and you would think it would be easy to talk about someone so amazing in front of all the people who loved and admired him most, but it isn't, at least not yet. So I didn't want to do this and be sad while I was doing it. I wanted to be smiling while I talked, not crying. So I try, much like Buzzy just did, I wanted to tell stories about his sense of humor and some of the stuff that made him laugh. And I was gonna start with, when Josh and I were little, we would play hide and go seek with my dad. And he would hide in a fairly obvious place, like a dark closet. And he would wait for us to find him. And then he would proceed to scare the shit out of us. So, I mean, it inevitably ended with tears and laughter and hugs. And it was one of our favorite things to do with him when we were little. And, my mom thought we were all crazy, but, she was probably just happy that he stopped scaring her, So, I don't know if everyone here knew that side of his personality, but it's those that did, that's what I want you to remember about him today, like the fun-loving, trash-talking prankster, like Buzzy said, the guy that would relentlessly pimp his college roommates until they had a study break. And the trash talk. Man, he loved trash talk. It could have been a game of hoops. tennis, chess. He loved to trash talk. And like Buzzy said, he was not always the most gracious winner. And like he brought up the Skola strut, and it was something that I was going to bring up as well, because it's how I want to picture him now, you know, like it was a pigeon walk. He would almost like kind of like walk around like this after he beat, if he beat Buzzy in chess. He didn't always win that, like Buzzy said, but it was a glow. It was a happy version of my dad that I picture, you know, right now. So that's what I want people to think of when they think of my dad right now. Like wherever he may be, he's doing the Skola strut somewhere. You know, that's what I want. So again, thanks everybody. I can't believe I actually got through it, but again, thank you.
No, thank you, Zach. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And now we will have a presentation from Brazilian Voices. Larissa and Mary, if you can activate. Oh, there they go.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Mary, for the invitation. We see so many members of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce. It feels like family to us, because Mr. Thomas always was encouraging us to share our music, our bossa nova music, and the love that he had from Brazil was so inspiring. And then I see the caipirinha, right? That he loved the cachaça, the caipirinha, and to enjoy life. So we just very emotionally, because of all of you testimonial and sharing those beautiful memories. But we would like to sing a song called Samba do Avião and invite all of you to celebrate his life, right, Bia? I'm here with Beatriz Maunick and Vivi, representing 34 women from Brazilian Voices, right?
Yes, so we would like to present in honor of Mr. Skola a song called Song of the Jet, Samba do Avião. So we invite you all to land in Rio de Janeiro.
Is that okay? Minha alma canta, vejo o Rio de Janeiro, estou morrendo de saudade. Rio, teu mar, praia sem fim, Rio, você que foi feito pra mim, Cristo Redentor, braços abertos sobre a Guanabara. Este samba é só porque Rio, eu gosto de você. A morena vai sambar, seu corpo todo balançar. Rio de sol, de céu, de mar, dentro de mais um minuto estaremos no Galeão.
Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro, Rio de Janeiro.
Cristo Redentor, braços abertos sobre a Guanabara. Este samba é só porque Rio, eu gosto de você. A morena vai sambar, seu corpo todo balançar. Aperte o cinto, vamos chegar. Água brilhando, olha a pista chegando e vamos nós. A terra. Thank you for having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was absolutely beautiful and a very good pick for celebrating Tom. That was a beautiful song. Thank you very much. In terms of our program, we concluded, but as I mentioned in the beginning, if anybody who didn't get a chance to speak would like to say a few words, please use the chat function so that Larissa or Mary can activate. They're also slowly now bringing people in to so we can maybe have everybody activate their cameras and so we can take a picture as well. Is that correct, Mary?
We're just going to see some.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so Larissa, I don't know if you've been receiving messages via chat, but if you want to let us know who has requested to say a couple of words.
We're opening all the cameras.
There's Mary.
Oh, Steve.
Where? Right there.
As we open the cameras, if you'd like to speak.
If you could, if you would like to say a few words, or if you could just send a message either to the panelists or to everybody via chat so that Larissa knows.
Wonder if we can see the whole program.
I think everybody's, we've got 2 people left to open the cameras.
I'll say a quick word, if I can.
Yes, Claudio, go ahead.
All right, perfect. Thank you. What a wonderful song for Tom, and what a wonderful event. Thank you very much for sharing all these memories. And one thing that I can tell you, I was the president for a couple times with the chamber. And Mary, you used to call me all the time for different issues that I could resolve, sometimes not so much. But I used to have a lifeline that I used to call all the time, which was Tom. I said, Mary, you have an issue. Mary would come up with the issue. I said, Mary, we got to call Tom. Tom needs to hear, we need to hear his feedback. And he was always my lifeline when managing or taking care of a situation with Mary. Now, he was going to be greatly missed. He was a strong pillar for the chamber. And today we are here and we're managing the chamber based on his support and based on what he thought was the best for the chamber here in Miami. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio.
I have a question. Since I joined late, is there anywhere where I could see the whole thing?
Yes. Yes, we have taped it. It is being recorded and it will be on our website.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry we were late.
This was very nice, Mary and Carlos. Thank you so much for putting this together. It's really special, as was Tom.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mary, do we have anybody else that would like to say anything?
I'd like to say a few words if I could.
Please, Ed.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ed Santos. I'm a director of the Chamber for 30 years. I've known Tom for 32 years. I followed in his footsteps, first as president of the Chamber a couple of times, as treasurer of the Chamber. I took over for Tom. I share with everybody's experience. First of all, this is a wonderful event and celebration. I'm happy to see everybody. And obviously the human nature is such that we find these things very, very pleasant, even though we miss and mourn Tom. But the thing I take away from Tom, the word mentors used, I think it's an apt word. But I think Claudio hit the nail on the head because Tom was never not really the president of the chamber. There were 96 presidents after him, but each one of us relied on him for what to do. So I'm very proud to be one of the many presidents who reached out to Tom throughout, basically throughout my 30 years on the board, reached out to Tom for the wisdom and the respect and the love for Brazil that he brought to everything. Tom was, I think, really distinguished himself as somebody who was, a very serious participant, but a very appreciative participant of very appreciative of the participation that all of our sponsor companies had, and from the largest Embraers of this world to the small little mom and pop that was a member of the chamber. So
After this guy finishes presentation,
I really
should I
appreciate
put
you all
John
being
or-
here and appreciate this opportunity to share with you some of the love we have for Tom.
Thank you very much, Ed. I saw here in the chat that Joe Mandato would like to say something. And then I think John Fusili would like to speak after that.
Hey, everybody. It's really nice to see so many familiar faces after so many years. So Tom and I met in June of 1968. John, I think, referenced his visit to Mexico. He was taking a group of high school students to Mexico. I was taking a group of high school students to Italy. And we met for training. And I had not known him for more than 5 minutes when, in a small crowd, people asked who everybody was. And Tom introduced me as his barber. How did he come up with that, right? Where did he come up with that? And then that little mischievous grin that we all know so well. Tom has been described in so many good words, but there was one that was missing. He was a provocateur. And an example of that might be Joey. There's a huge market for Persian rugs in Brazil. I happen to be going to Iran. And so I think you should buy some Persian rugs and we'll make a fortune reselling them in Brazil. So I went to Iran and I said, Tommy, I'm going to ship it. He said, no, you have to hand carry. Shipping will take too long. So I did. I hand carried 3 Persian rugs in my luggage. There was room for nothing else. So I got back to the States and all of a sudden, somehow the market dried up, right? I said, Tommy, we now have an inventory of Persian rugs. He said, Joey, I'm a lawyer and there are some words that describe what the situation is. Caveat emptor. Those are your rugs, Joe. The market came back to life and Tommy got rid of our rugs. But it was the incessant, pinging, probing, aggravating that was such a special memory for me for so many years. Unfortunately, in the end, we hadn't seen Tom. We hadn't seen him since he had gotten sick. And so, as with Ron Peranowski, our other good friend, Ron Perry, their passing is so untimely, and it leaves such a void.
This is John
Thank you.
Fasulo. May
Thank
I
you, John.
say something?
Yes, John. Please go ahead.
Oh, that's great. I didn't think I would be able to get on. My presentation is a bit different from the others. Let me first say that it is a real honor to be on this Zoom celebration of Tom's life. Tom, Italians are a little emotional. I'm sorry. Tom was one of my closest and best friends for more than 50 years. I first met Tom when I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Chile, and Tom was a Fulbright student. Tom was almost like a member of our group. He attended all our parties. He went to our barbecues. He went to special events. Like I say, for all practical purposes, he was a member of our group. After I finished my tour in Chile, I joined the Agency for International Development, part of the State Department. And Tom went on, as you well know, to become a very successful lawyer. Over the years, we continue to communicate by means of postcards. Sometimes there would be a letter. And more recently, with the advent of WhatsApp, it was more frequently, and they involved political jokes, news about the coronavirus, etc. And many of the WhatsApp messages were very humorous. If you know Tom, that's the way he was. He was quite a companion. And as I mentioned in the beginning, he really was one of my closest and best friends for so many years, so many years. There's one thing I want to mention. It's personal. When I was on my way to Chile, I stopped in Florida to see Tom. We went out to have dinner, and I told him that I was going through a period of depression. And Tom said, it surprised me. He said, "John, I'll pray for you." And I'll always remember that. And forgive me, being Italian, I get a little sentimental at times, but I'm so happy that I've been able to participate in this celebration of friendship with Tom. I've given you a different slant on my relationship with Tom, and I thought it would be useful for the others to hear some idea what Tom was like outside of his practice being a lawyer. Again, thank you so much. It was quite an honor to be a part of this group. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you very, very much. Mary, do we have anybody else who would like to say some final words?
Yes, Alexandre Piquet, the current president of the chamber.
Please, Alexandre.
Hi, everyone. It's great to see everyone here celebrating Tom's life. And it is with great honor that I'm serving as 2021 president for the chamber. And I remember in the past years as a board member, Tom was always there, cautious and very concerned with the new members, especially the part where we sit in each meeting to vote the admission and approval of new member applicants. And Tom always had an angle and a special nose if something didn't smell right. And I remember when we were close to the voting and the announcement of the new president last year, he was already sick. And I remember thinking the first thing I need to do when Tom gets better is to talk to him and see, get some tips on how to identify these potential hazards of brand association or some not so honest or righteous individuals that want to join the chamber for not the honest reasons. And unfortunately, the first meeting we had this year was to give the news to the board members, and the sad news, it was me, the ambassador from the Brazilian consulate. It was a special session that we pretty much discussed how we were going to proceed without him. But I think the main mission, at least my personal goal, is to be a gatekeeper for the chamber, following his footsteps on how to maintain the institution, the association, this thing that he created from scratch, a a respectful, continue to be a respectful, solid, and very well guarded institution. So I'd like to thank Tom for always fighting for a country that, even though he's not here with us anymore, I'm pretty sure he still loves it very much. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexandre. Mary, do we have anybody else?
Not that have raised their hand that would like to speak. I have one new message.
I think we have a few messages that people chose to send with text. Is there anybody else before we close? In that case, no, I don't think so.
I'll quickly say that I wasn't able to speak, and I'm not able to speak because I worked with Tom very closely for 21 years, and it's a huge loss. So thank you all for participating today as well.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. I had a conversation with Mary before, and Mary told me that it would be very hard for her to speak today, and that's why I hadn't pressed on for her to speak. But I'm very glad, Mary, that that you found your breath to say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've heard a lot of different sides of Tom today. We heard mentor, for sure. You know, we heard the amazingly accomplished professional that he was, but we also heard that he was a provocateur and apparently a master tickler. I did not know that. But I want to thank each and every one of you for being here, for sharing your thoughts, for sharing your memories, for sharing your stories with us. Because we, you know, a lot of us, especially from the Brazilian Chamber side, we've known Tom for a very long time, but we didn't know certain sides of him. You know, his family side, we knew his professional side for sure, and some of us were lucky enough to be able to call him a friend, but we didn't know some of his earlier stories. So thank you very, very much for sharing all of that with us. And as mentioned earlier, I truly hope that we can overcome this situation where we're doing everything via Zoom, so that we can do this in person in the near future. So thank you very much on behalf of the board of the Brazilian American Chamber of Commerce of Florida for being here. And we will certainly keep Tom in our thoughts, but I am sure that he is overlooking all of us right now. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Good seeing everyone.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Bye-bye.
Green button up there.
Okay.
You should press it again.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
The mic's still on. Yeah, we're trying to shut it down. Hey, Maureen.
Hello?
Yeah, we're trying to shut it down.
Oh, okay, okay.
Stop video.
You're on mute if you want to.
Just go there. Just look it up.
Okay, I'm gonna shut it for everybody so that you don't need to worry about your cameras not being closed.
Thank you, Mary. Take
Thank
care.
you,
everyone. Thank you,
Have a
Mary.
good day.
Thank you, Larissa.
Have a-
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Parabéns, parabéns, Mary, Larissa.
Obrigada.
Bye-bye.